games would be better without aim down sight. Let's go.
I want to make this video more accessible with clear examples illustrating my point. I want to show definitively how certain games are affected by aim down sights and hopefully explain to you how these games would be better without it or with a reduced presence of the feature. Basically, it works well in some games, but I think it's getting included in games where it shouldn't be due to market pressure. Getting right into it, I think a great example is Back 4 Blood. It was obviously meant to be the spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, the same dev studio coming back to reclaim the throne of the ever-popular zombie co-op shooter. Of course, we know in hindsight that it dropped with a wet fart, famous only
I never played Back 4 Blood or whatever, so I'm just going off of whatever gameplay is right in front of me.
for the gamer zombie.
What did that zombie say?
I had an inkling before launch that this game wouldn't be great. What clued me in, at least partially, was the presence of sprint and aim down sights.
Yep.
The original Left 4 Dead didn't have aim down sights, and it doesn't suit this type of game. Now you might think introducing these mechanics is just modernizing the game, but these things aren't just the natural evolution of mechanics. In 2009, when Left 4 Dead 2 released, these features were already the norm. This was the same year as Modern Warfare 2. They deliberately ignored the sprint and ADS mechanics because Left 4 Dead is centered around constant movement. The focus is literally on getting to the next safe house.
I do kind of remember playing like Left 4 Dead 1. I didn't own the game. It would always be just one of those games where I would go to my friend's house and play a couple rounds there. And then after that, we would just like switch to something else. So I didn't really notice it back in the day.
As quick as possible. When you stand still in that game, you die. All the mechanics support this. The director system they had was designed to maximize the intensity of the experience. The zombies don't even do that much damage. The real danger of their attacks is that they stun you and slow you down. And the melee doesn't do much damage either. It's just supposed to keep them from hitting you so that you can keep running. So much of the game is just running while shooting zombies behind you. Imagine you had to slow down dramatically to aim. It just runs counter to the design. I think for this,
which wouldn't be super terrible, but the fact that aim down sights generally slows your speed down by a significant amount and increases your accuracy by a significant amount. It's, you know, not so much the accuracy part, but the slowdown, at least for Left 4 Dead, really is what, you know, isn't really good and makes for fun gameplay.
Style of game, it is better without ADS. And of course, there'll be some that'll say, you know, Back 4 Blood had bigger issues than just aim down sights. And it's true that there were bigger issues, but like I said, the presence of features like aim down sights is what clued me in as to them not entirely knowing what they're doing. Another obvious example is Halo Infinite. Now, Halo doesn't really have ADS, but they have some in-between system. Smart Link arose when 343 realized they couldn't just put ADS in Halo without messing it up. Having to slow down for accuracy wouldn't work in a high time to kill game like Halo. It would advantage people fleeing way too much. It's like they're trying to have their feet in both worlds. I think 343 recognized that aim down sights doesn't really work with the Halo style of gameplay. Hence why it doesn't have most of the penalties that...
Okay, so at least for Halo, time needed to aim down sight, I take it was too long. It lowers your FOV. Yep, that's always a negative, you know. Instead of seeing, like, opening up and seeing more things on your sides, what low FOV means is it essentially narrows your vision, and it makes you sort of tunnel more. Slower move speed, you know, that's never really fun for like any shooter. Part of screen is obscured. Yep, because the gun is generally like right in the center. And at least as far as he's talking about Halo, if enemies like crouch spam and like AD strafe or whatever, you know, it's not uncommon for an enemy to just disappear, like just right under the sight of your gun. Part of HUD can be removed. Yep, that is true. Whenever you're a HUD, like at least a little, like a couple pieces of it are just removed. You're just like not really knowing what's going on, like how much shield you have or whatever, how much ammo you got left in a clip or whatever. Reduced accuracy when not in ADS. Yep. So anytime you're just running around hip firing everything, hip firing, you need to be like insanely close to your enemy, which isn't really possible when at least you're talking about like at least the ranked portion of Halo. A lot of the ranked portion of Halo is like at least from like medium to long range. Seldom do you ever get like in close range. And there's flinch. Oh boy, the ever loved mechanic of flinch that every game developer seems to want to include, that just jerks your head up, and they think the players like that. Oh, it's a pain point. Oh, it's a pain point for the player. Oh, yeah, it's not much of a deal on controller whenever you tilt your thumb down and you're just constantly getting down inputs. So anytime your what do you call it? Your reticle gets shot up because you just got shot in the head. You're just constantly getting down movement, so you don't have to react to it. Meanwhile, over here on Apex or whatever, we got, what's it called, aim kick or aim punch. You know, when you get shot in the head when you don't have a shield on, and you're on M&K, your reticle goes up, and you have to react to it, and you have to pull back down. All right. Meanwhile, on controller, you just pull down, and you're pretty much chilling. So yeah, flinch is never fun.
That are typically associated with aim down sights, but they are split between that and their market research, which I'm going to guess follows the pattern we witnessed in my previous videos on the subject. That is, people feel really strongly about having aim down sights in their games. But I think 343 should be brave and commit. Doom Eternal did it and it worked fine.
Yeah.
Having these half-baked, superfluous...
Yeah, Doom Eternal was, I think, nothing but W's as far as, you know, the gameplay goes. Like in the sound and
mechanics, just
like all the visuals and whatnot. The only thing you aim down sight is, I think, the sniper. And I think your assault rifle, or no, that's no, because last time I played Doom Eternal, there wasn't really a sniper gun, but on the AR, you could like alt fire, and your alt fire would be like a sniper, and that would be like the only instance to like snipe off like critical points on like all the monsters and demons and shit. And then I think there was like there was like a beam gun or something that you could ADS, and then I think, what was it, the minigun? I think you could ADS. I'm not sure, but very few guns had ADS, and for the most part, the movement and the overall gameplay in Doom Eternal just feels good.
Just bogs down the experience. Cut the smart scope. It isn't necessary for Halo, and having some aim button isn't necessary for every single modern shooter. If anything, Halo was notable early on for its streamlining, for cutting superfluous features. They bound grenades and melee to just one button each, had just 2 weapons. They cut down on the weapon carry capacity. This is in an effort to focus on the core elements that make a shooter.
The core gameplay mechanics. I mean, for most of the casual audience, I mean, if you try to explain to them like how to strafe and mirror and anti-mirror against an enemy, you're gonna be talking to them like you're speaking Spanish or whatever, like it's a whole nother language. Or when to push and when to fall back in something. It's like these are basics of FPS, like holding certain angles, like what's an aggressive angle, what's a defensive angle. All right, these are basics as far as FPS goes, but the developers, since they have no idea really about it, they don't really know like how to teach it in their game. So I don't know. Let's keep listening.
And see how much you can do with as little ephemera as possible. 30 seconds of fun and all that. Back to basics. Titanfall is another interesting example. Everybody told me about the ways to mitigate the effects of aim down sights in Titanfall.
Yeah, just use the car. And you're pretty good.
Use certain guns like the alternator with no penalty for not aiming down sights. Stay in the air, always keep jumping. It seems as though people really hate being bogged down by the effects of aim down sights in this movement shooter. Aim down sights is a choice to be slowed down in exchange for
Yeah, the only time you really aim down sight in Titanfall uh is when you're flying through the air. You just hit a fat, like, I don't know, 720 grapple, and then you aim down sight on the Kraber to like one shot the dude across the map that just spawned that you just killed earlier with the car. That's pretty much the only time you aim down sight.
Greater accuracy, but does slowing you down for ideal accuracy not run in opposition to the central idea of a game that wants you to keep moving? To be fair, I think it's exacerbated by Titanfall 2's larger, more open map design. There are many.
Do not diss the Titanfall map design. That stuff is crispy, clean, all right? The map design promotes the usage of the movement mechanics that the developers wanted.
Battles that'll boil down to long-distance ADS gun battles from the rooftops of different buildings. You'd think the game would be at its best when you're maximizing the use of the movement mechanics, when you're bunny hopping everywhere. There are some weapons, like the pistols and SMGs, where this type of gameplay happens, and they're the most fun weapons to use.
Yeah.
ADS kind of works as a noob trap. The game obviously has this cool movement that is the main draw, but aim down sights leads new players astray. It promotes the exact opposite type of gameplay to the style that the game wants you to use. Let's say a new player comes over from Call of Duty. They'll default to the boots on ground playstyle.
Yep.
I think part of the success.
And in Titanfall, whenever I see somebody on the ground, that's just an easy target. You know, kill, move on to the next one. As you're flying, grappling through the air, wall running, bee hopping, whatever.
Of Apex Legends is that they moved away from some of the vestigial mechanics they inherited from Call of Duty.
Apex is its own thing, man. It it uses like a version of the source engine, so there's things like lurches that Titanfall used, but yeah.
Like low times to kill. I think Titanfall is a different type of game, and the developers should reconsider even the most seemingly fundamental of mechanics. Look at how it plays out in game. Look, they use all this cool movement to get around the map. When fighting an enemy in close range, he hip fires. That's all good. He keeps moving and using the cool movement, but then, inevitably, as always happens, he has to engage an enemy from a distance, and he must aim down sights. Suddenly, he's lost all that momentum and needs to slow down to stay in this.
I mean, he didn't really have to. Essentially, it's all about how you want to engage your enemy, you know? The fact that you see an enemy doesn't mean you have to engage him, you know? What he could have done is, kept the momentum. I don't even know if he had okay, so he has sprint down here. He could have activated sprint, keep going around this building, hit the wall, and come over here because there's a window or a door over here.
Gun battle, and he's not moving anymore. Look at this clip as well, it's similar. He uses the hip fire, bunny hops, uses all the movement and that,
yeah.
And then again he gets into a long range battle because the maps are so open.
Yeah, he gets into a long range battle because he commits to it. Anytime you're in a long range gun battle, you have the option to just pull out and do something else.
And he ADSs, and he loses all that momentum. I think Titanfall's continuation of Call of Duty's mechanics has been to its detriment. Basically, Titanfall had its feet in two worlds.
Yeah.
That seems to be the recurring issue. With Apex Legends, they committed.
And I think it's fine for a game to have its feet in two worlds, movement shooter and a little bit of aim down sight. I think it's fine.
More to a vision. They did keep aim down sights, but it worked better because the game was slowed down by a lot. The movement mechanics were gutted and the times to kill were notably raised.
Yeah.
They made aim down sights work in Apex because it's far slower, more tactical game with much slower pacing.
Yeah.
And it's built around gun battles which are on average much longer distance. It makes a lot more sense in that game. For what it's worth, I do think aim down sights works in Apex because it actually is a tactical choice.
So, depending on what skill level you're talking about, gunfights can be exclusively long range, mid range, or close range. If you're talking about tournaments like ALGS, a lot of the times it's like long range fight, which you give it to M&K, or if you're talking about, I don't know, it's a big grab bag with Apex at least, but to say that it's exclusively one range based game, I don't think that's true. because a lot of the times you have to push an enemy. You know, you start off long or medium or whatever. Somebody cracks an armor, and then you just triple swing like around a piece of cover or whatever, and then, well, what do you know? You're in close range. And who has the advantage in close range? Controller. So let's keep listening.
There is some risk for some reward. Another game I'd consider is Destiny. I wouldn't cut aim down sights from Destiny 2, it's already built into the game, but I think it'd be interesting for future content to reduce the presence or necessity of the feature. Classic shredded nerd clickbaiting again. What I mean by this is that there should be more guns that are a smidge more interesting than you need to aim down sights to be able to shoot accurately. A good example is alternate fire. There should be more weapons.
I want more weapons with alternate fires. Alternate fires are a fun like shooter mechanic that not a lot of games take advantage of. You know, yes, there are some games, but I would say for the majority of FPSs, they don't take advantage of alt fire. And I'd be interested to play more games with like alt fire guns. I think that'd be really cool.
Weapons with alternate fire modes like duality. Its ADS mode isn't just slowed down to be accurate, it provides an entirely new utility. It changes how the weapon functions. The glaives are similar. The button typically bound to aim down sights raised your shield instead. I think this would obviously be good for diversity in weapons. You'd still have ADS weapons, just make some new weapons different. I think the popularity of the BXR Battler, the Forerunner, and the Dead Man's Tale, which are basically the battle rifle, Magnum, and DMR from Halo, tell the story pretty well. These weapons have a scope that functions more analogous to the classic Halo weapons of old, rather than just being identical to the typical aim-down sights. And they pair very well with the movement-focused gameplay of Destiny. More weapons like that, please.
So I haven't played a lot of Destiny, but what I think he said is the quote-unquote meta guns for whatever mode you're playing are the guns that don't have ADS, because the movement in Destiny is really fun. So, point right there.
More alternatives to the typical aim down sight style. And I know some nitpicker is going to come out in the comments with something like, actually, in the season of the boner, these weapons did not see any use. You get these pedantic people because Bungie updates the values in new patches every 8 hours, and every single player in this game uses the exact same weapon, desperately chasing what's new. Destiny fans are the biggest meta slaves in the world. If Bungie patch notes said that wearing a cock cage increased accuracy by 10%, at least half of the population would probably do it.
Oh
Look,
my god.
people find them fun to use.
It is a fantastic weapon. It is by far one of the hottest guns inside of Crucible.
And I'm in love with this gun, and I tried the crafted one, and I definitely recommend crafting it too.
Actually, dude, I don't think we've had a weapon that's like this cool and unique. It's actually like fun to use in Crucible.
Basically, in short, yes, they're good weapons, people tend to find them fun, and they are quite popular. So, in short, I'm not taking away your games. I think some games should have aim down sights, but I also think it's become a mold that some games should break. When I said it's a bad mechanic, all I meant is that it has a bad overall effect on shooters at large, not that it's bad in every single game. With a title, you have to summarize a lot of thoughts in a simple way. I think it's in too many games where it doesn't benefit the experience. And yes, obviously it's my opinion. I never presented it as objective fact. I'll give you a hint. Any video that has a value judgment, like good or bad, is inherently going to be subjective. Aim down sights should be in Call of Duty. In fact, in recent Call of Duties, the aim down sights has been rendered.
Bro, imagine playing Call of Duty without aim down sight. Because I'm pretty sure Call of Duty is like, it's already like fast paced and try hard and whatever, but just imagine playing it with no ADS.
A bit slower than in older ones, with a lot of attachments that penalize you with
minus aim down sight speed.
Slower ADS as a trade-off for whatever benefits you get. I think this is good, actually. You get penalties in exchange for an advantage. Aim down sights actually functions as a...
Okay, tactical choice. Time needed to aim down sight. So that's just the time it takes from your gun to go from like a hip fire mode to bring it up to your face. Lower FOV. You know, that's what we talked about earlier. Start out with the wide view, and then it just narrows. Slower move speed, because, you know, of course, when you aim down sight, it's supposed to be quote unquote realistic or whatever. So you move less. Part of the screen is obscured, part of the HUD is removed, and you can't sprint. Yep, tactical choices.
The tactical choice, because there is risk with a reward. If a game were to take away the penalties, then aim down sights kind of stops being a tactical choice and stops being interesting.
Yeah. You have the lower FOV, and part of the screen is obscured. So what would that even look like? Has a game even done that? Like, you have like your normal, like, I don't know, walk or run speed, and then you can still aim down sight, but you're just moving the same. You have a lower FOV, and your screen's obscured a little bit, but you still have, like, your accuracy hasn't changed. It's literally just like style points. You're just literally styling on people if you choose to, like, kill people without all the negatives that happen when you aim down sight.
Because there is no risk to the reward. This type of aim down sights is, at best, superfluous, and at worst, misleading to newer players, if it is a movement game that you aren't meant to play like COD. So I don't think you can have it both ways, with a foot in both worlds. I think there are developers who just include the feature because it's the assumed default, the standard. But I think you should either commit to aim down sights as a mechanic or reconsider whether you need it at all. Really, to know whether you need it, it's a simple question. Is your game the type of game where you want players to incur these penalties for ideal accuracy? For those games that are focused on movement, it just might not be the right choice.
If you're making a movement shooter, no ADS. If you're not making a movement shooter, yes, ADS.
I would like to thank my patrons Jonathan Chablock, Maritime Steak 85, Delirious Fool, Topkick Red, and Adam Safranco. Apologies if I pronounced any of those wrong.
All right, good stuff. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I agree with it, man. It's like the games nowadays, or at least like modern FPSs, they try to do a little bit of both, and what ends up happening is it just feels clunky. Is essentially what it feels like. Or you can just, you know, aim train your heart away, or play some indie games, because indie games seem to do it right. But I mean, it is what it is, man. All right, that's pretty much it. Good video, man. All right, later.